Amidst the Silverstone crowd's excitement over the possibility of seeing Lewis Hamilton achieve his first podium with Ferrari, a painful drama unfolded that opened a new chapter in the seven-time world champion's relationship with his new team. Instead of a night of glory, the 2025 British Grand Prix exposed cracks in Ferrari's internal dynamics that could no longer be concealed by smiles or technical excuses. Why did Lewis Hamilton fail to reach the podium? Let's discuss it. In his sharp words, one F1 analyst put it this way: Ferrari didn't lose the podium, they handed it over willingly. Indeed, the decision that knocked Hamilton off the podium did not come from an on-track incident, but from Ferrari's own strategic position. It all began on lap 42, when Hamilton was unexpectedly called to the pits to switch from intermediate tires to slicks. The main focus, however, wasn't the decision to pit, but rather the timing of it. Seconds before the pit order was given, Hamilton questioned the accuracy of the rain radar and the age of his tires, but all he received was silence. Ferrari's radio was silent. Then, suddenly, came the command. Box. Ferrari admitted that their GPS system had failed on lap 10. Was that really a valid excuse for such a reckless strategy, though? Even with the GPS problem, Ferrari still had complete sector timing data. They knew Hamilton's position relative to Nico Hülkenberg, yet they chose to call Hamilton in a lap early when the intermediate tires were still reliable. Meanwhile, Hülkenberg stayed on track, got clean air, and set a 4.6-second faster outlap. The result: Hülkenberg earned his first podium in 239 races. As for Hamilton, he was back in last place, even having to overtake his own teammate, Leclerc. Again, strategy wasn't the only questionable aspect. Car setup was also a major issue. Telemetry showed an 18% increase in rear end instability compared to the FP2 baseline right after the first pit stop. This was not suspected to be due to the weather, but rather to the aggressive setup that Hamilton himself chose: soft rear suspension, low ride height, and extreme brake bias. Hamilton was trying to build the car to his liking. However, when the conditions changed and the car became unmanageable, the team simply left him alone. "You're kind of in no man's land," Lewis said. Those words weren't just about racing. They were also about a breakdown in trust. Suspicious signs continued to emerge throughout the race. One of the most glaring occurred on lap 35, just as Hamilton was passing Stroll. Suddenly, the Ferrari SF25's brake bias system shifted 1.7% backward without any input from Hamilton. This technical occurrence would normally be nearly impossible without direct instruction from the driver. The implication was clear: the car was responding automatically, as if an invisible hand had intervened. This happened precisely when Hamilton was building momentum and pressuring Nico Hülkenberg for a podium finish. The question was, why? Why would the car's system act on its own precisely at such a crucial moment? According to internal analysis and several reliable sources, the answer may not be as simple as a technical error. As Hamilton began to become competitive, Ferrari realized that the world's attention would be on him. If Hamilton overtakes and finishes on the podium, the narrative will be clear. Hamilton is Ferrari's savior, bringing new hope amid a performance crisis. Perhaps that's precisely what some inside Ferrari don't want. "Ferrari doesn't want a podium," said an anonymous insider. "They want to prove Hamilton's approach is wrong. They want to show that his driving style isn't suited to the SF25. They'd rather fail than let Lewis be the hero." It sounds cruel, but in the political world of Formula One, which is full of egos, power, and hidden agendas, nothing is impossible. Following the incident on lap 46, Sky Sports broadcast Lewis Hamilton's radio address to the public. "This car is so hard to drive, it's snappy as hell." However, according to leaks from inside Ferrari, that wasn't the entire message. A crucial sentence was censored, and it was precisely that sentence that held the deepest meaning. Hamilton added emphatically, "We've got to stop this cycle. Next year starts now." It wasn't just an expression of frustration. It was a declaration of war. It showed that Lewis was no longer willing to be a passive passenger in the continually disappointing SF25 project. From now on, he wanted to take charge. Not as a driver who merely accepts the technical team's results, but as the main architect of the 2026 Cars Development Team. Principal Fred Vassar's post-race comments sounded more like damage control than an honest reflection on the failure. He blamed the failure on interference with the GPS system and called their pit stop strategy an act of blindness in the unpredictable rain. However, the most striking aspect was not the content of his statement, but his tone, calm and level with almost no remorse. That wasn't the tone of a leader whose team had just lost a podium finish in front of their own fans. It was the voice of a politician, more focused on salvaging internal structures than facing reality. Behind his calm demeanor, however, lurked great tension. Vassar chose to blame the system and technology rather than people. However, by publicly defending his staff, he also lost the trust of his superstar, Lewis Hamilton. This wasn't just a strategic misstep, it reflected a deeper identity crisis. Who was really driving Ferrari right now? It wasn't just a simple strategic mistake. From the late pit stop decision to the suspicious brake bias system change to the radio silence during a critical situation, everything pointed to one conclusion. Lewis Hamilton was being treated not as a world champion but as an experiment. He was no longer the project leader but rather a guinea pig in a system reluctant to accept change. Hamilton was being set up to fail, not because of a technical error, but because of a hidden agenda to show that rebellious voices wouldn't change the system. Hamilton's role was no longer to inspire, but to follow. However, Hamilton, as usual, didn't give in to the imposed narrative. He understood the hidden message behind the actions. There was no celebration or gesture of respect at the end of the race. Hamilton walked through the crowd without looking back, refusing to acknowledge the drama that had eliminated him. Only one sentence came out of his mouth, cold but sharp. "I know what I don't want in next year's car." The 2025 British Grand Prix was about more than just a missed podium. It was a pivotal moment that signaled the start of an internal power struggle within Ferrari. Beneath flawed strategies and poor communication, the seeds of conflict were beginning to grow, and at the center of it all was Lewis Hamilton. He was not just the fastest driver on the track. He was also fully aware of his influence, political power, and entitlement as a living Formula One legend. One thing was clear: Hamilton would no longer remain silent. Every word he spoke to the media, every setup decision he questioned, and every team instruction he received would be part of a major campaign. Not to rebel aimlessly, but with one goal: to shape Ferrari according to his vision and not be just a cog in a worn-out machine. As the broadcast concluded, a sentence that now feels more like a warning than a conclusion was spoken: "The truth won't be televised, but here it is decoded." Do you believe Hamilton was truly sabotaged? Or is this just natural internal drama of the adaptation process? Let us know.